Hey, what's up, stock compounders? Brad here. So today I want to do a video about how to use 13F filings to find great new investment ideas. Every 3 months, an investment manager who manages more than $100 million in US equities has to disclose what they owned in the last quarter. So, in just a couple days, investors are going to have to reveal their holdings for quarter three, okay? The end of quarter three, which is the end of September, right? So we get to see, what Berkshire Hathaway, what Mohnish Pabrai, what Guy Spear, everything that they owned in terms of equities at the end of September, they have to reveal come mid-November. So just wanted to give a little primer about how I use 13F filings. And then I've got a couple other websites that kind of package the information nicely to make that research of what investors are buying a little faster. So first, let's go right to the source, SECgov. This is where, the investors actually have to file through the SEC, and we can see those filings. We're going to look at Mohnish Pabrai's most recent 13F filing, which was, about 3 months ago in, was it August? Yeah, mid-August. So we're going to click Company Filings. Is that what we're going to do? Let's see. Dalal Street. Okay. So in order to find an investment manager's filings, you have to know kind of what their legal name is. And I happen to know Mohnish Pabrai's name for his fund is Dalal Street LLC. So I'm going to click that. And so here I can see all of his 13F filings, okay? The only one that's not a 13F that we can see here is this 13G. And that was when he bought more than 10% of the shares outstanding of Seritage Growth Properties back in May. So if you buy more than 10% of a company or of the shares outstanding, within 10 days of the following month, you have to disclose that. So that's what this one is. But let's take a look at his most recent 13F, which covered the second quarter of 2020. We're going to click on Documents, and then we're going to click on this third hyperlink, Info Table HTML. So here is what Mohnish Pabrai owned on the last day of the second quarter of 2020, which was, I think, June 30th. So Micron, you can see the number of shares, 1.82 million shares. And then Seritage Growth Properties, about 4.7 million shares. Now this value column, this is based on the share price at close on the last day of the quarter, okay? So June 30th, when the market closed, this value column is based on what the share price was on that day multiplied by the number of shares that you see here. So this is not what Pabrai spent on this holding, all right? Even if it was a new buy, as in the case of Seritage, because these investment managers, they don't have to disclose the exact price that they bought their shares to the SEC. They only have to disclose how many shares they own at the end of the quarter, okay? So that's really all we know, how many shares were owned on June 30th. And then this value was just calculated based on that share price on the last day of the quarter. So these are the two US equities that Mohnish Pabrai currently owns. Now, what we're not seeing here is cash that Mohnish Pabrai is holding, okay? We're not seeing short position. Mohnish Pabrai doesn't short, so I'm pretty confident that he doesn't have any short positions. But if he did, and certainly there are other investors who do shorting, it's not going to show up on this 13F. Bonds aren't going to show up on this 13F. It's really just equities and also options, so call options and put options. So the thing I like to do, if I'm using SEC to look at 13Fs, is I'll just create my own spreadsheet with the name of the company, Micron Seritage, how many shares they own, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll look at the price range in the second quarter. So let's take an example. Let's look at Micron. And this isn't a new position for Pabrai, but let's say it was a new position in the second quarter. So what I'm looking at the price between April 1st, which is, that looks like the low, just under $40 per share, and June 30th, okay? So, if Pabrai were to buy Micron in the second quarter, I know he bought somewhere between $40, say $39.89, and $53.72. He bought somewhere in that range. That's actually really useful information to me, to know that this fantastic investor who has a track record of 20% plus annual returns over the last 25 years bought in this price range. That can really help me. And what I like to do, since I'm greedy, is I like to assume he bought at the low in that quarter, okay? If he bought in the quarter, I'm assuming he bought at the low. So say $40 per share for Micron. And you might have it as simply as, okay, that's my target price. That's my buy price when Micron gets down to that level. If it's an investor you really trust, I'm not recommending that, but it wouldn't be crazy to set up a system like that where that's your buy price. And that's kind of what I'm doing with Google. I know Li Lu bought Google back in the second quarter, and it couldn't have been less than 1100 because Google was never less than 1100 in the second quarter. But 1100, based on that, because I know Li Lu, he's an incredible investor. He's the only guy that Charlie Munger has given money to manage for Charlie. 1100 sounds like it could be a pretty good entry price for Google. But anyway, so here's what I would do. I told you I would create a spreadsheet from this, the most recent 13F, with the name, the number of shares. You can put in today's price, whatever you want to do. You can even put in the low price from that quarter that it was purchased. And then I'm going to go to the previous 13F, which was for the first quarter of 2020. Loading. Okay, so you can see here, Micron was owned in the first quarter of 2020 as well. So it's not a new buy. Now you can look at the number of shares. Maybe the number of shares has changed. And so you can see, how much was added or maybe how much was sold off in the second quarter. So you're really looking for the share change on these 13Fs. And of course, Fiat Chrysler doesn't show up in that second quarter 13F filing. So that means, Pabrai completely exited his Fiat Chrysler position, sometime in the second quarter, because this is what he had at the end of the first quarter. So it's really helpful to small investors like us to see roughly where these great investors are buying in to their positions, both buying in new or just adding to their positions, to understand what that price range is. So that's where you go for the raw information, SECgov. A site that I use more frequently for 13F filings than SEC.gov is Dataroma, okay? So Dataroma, really just compiles all of the 13F data into a form that's really usable. It's very user-friendly. And it has other things as well. You can see in the side here, you can see the top 10 most owned stocks. The most number of super investors own these. Facebook is the most owned stock by super investors within Dataroma. Top 10 stocks by percentage. So this is really useful stuff here too. Top big bets, and then you've got top buys in the last quarter, 6 months by percentage. So there's a lot of different ways to slice and dice the data here. But let's take a look at, I just want to show you Mohnish Pabrai's portfolio here so we can compare it to what we saw in the 13F. I think he was an early filer for this period. There he is. So you can see here, it's different. It's different than the SEC. It shows he added a little bit of Micron, under 1%, which we could have figured out from looking at the latest 13F and the one before that, but it would have taken us a little bit more time. And it shows us it was a new buy. So when it says buy, it wasn't previously owned. It wasn't owned in the quarter prior. So you can see this is for the second quarter of 2020, which is the most recent data we have. And then I want to point out this reported price. This is not the price that these investors are buying necessarily. This reported price, you can see here there's an asterisk. The price of the security as of the portfolio date, okay? So it's just the price on June 30th, at the close of market on June 30th. That's this price. So, a lot of people ask me, hey, why do you say Li Lu bought into Google at 1100 when it says in Dataroma it was 1400 something, right? Well, again, this doesn't have anything to do with the price that these investors bought in at. It's simply the price at the end of the quarter. So keep that in mind. Right, so I want to look at one more thing here. Let's look at, who do I want to look at? I want to look at Michael Burry, okay, of The Big Short. Now, you can see here, this is Michael Burry's equity portfolio. Lots of changes. Look at that. So Bed Bath & Beyond, totally new buy. Trip.com, he's got all of these new buys. And they're not small bets, guys. Look at these. I mean, 9%, almost 12%, 9, 8, 7, 6. These are big bets. So, but what I want to point out here is Dataroma does not show options, okay? It just shows the pure equity plays. Now, if we actually go back to SECgov, and I only learned this recently. Let's look at, that's not it. What is the name of Scion Asset Management? Let's take a look at that. I want to show you in the 13Fs, so this is the most recent 13F, it actually shows the option positions, which again is new to me. So if you see here, it says put call. There's a put call column, and so you can see these are all call options that Michael Burry has bought, and he was so aggressive, guys, in the second quarter of 2020. I mean, look at this. It's 113 million. Okay. Well, right. So keep in mind, this is the value at the end of the quarter, right? So we don't know exactly how much Michael Burry paid for these Google options. I'm guessing he paid significantly less, but it's great that we can see the call and put options. In the SEC 13F filings, we cannot see the call or puts in Dataroma. So I just wanted to point that out. And then the last thing I want to talk about, which I'm actually most excited about, is Ticker Terminal. Now, Ticker Terminal, it's in the beta version. which means it's free now. You have to have a link that allows you to get in to the beta version. I'll post that link. It's not even my link. I don't get anything from it. It's the corner of Berkshire and Fairfax sign up link for Ticker Terminal. So it will, be a paid service at some point, I am sure. But right now it's free and it's not hard to learn. So, take a look at it. It's pretty impressive. So the thing I really like about Ticker Terminal is, well, let's look at Pabrai's funds, for example. So not only does it show us the U.S. equities, which, if we look at Dataroma or SEC, all we're going to see is U.S. stuff. If we look at Ticker Terminal, this is a company, Nice Holdings. This is a company from South Korea, okay? We got Suntech Realty, we got Rain Industries. These are Indian equities. This is a Turkish company. So, it's really cool to be able to see, what these great investors are buying, not only in the U.S., but overseas, right? Foreign equities. And I just signed up for an Interactive Brokers brokerage account, which will allow me to buy stocks outside of the U.S. In a number of different markets. And I'm excited to really dial into which markets that allows me to trade stocks in. But this is really cool to be able to see guru investor holdings outside of the U.S. So I just wanted to point that out from Ticker Terminal, another great place to track what the super investors are doing. And there's actually a lot of super investors in here. We can look at what Burpee is doing, which we just looked at in Dataroma. You can see his biggest position is this company also in South Korea, right? So it's really interesting just to see where these great investors are shopping for stocks. There you go, South Korea. Transportation vehicles, that's really interesting. The company offers ambulances, examination and welfare cars. So some really interesting types of vehicles are manufactured, it looks like, by this company. Refrigerated cars, walk-through vans. I'm not even sure that I know what that is. But anyway, if you want to get off the beaten path, it's always great to start with what great investors have bought. And it's awesome to be able to both get off the beaten path and know that we're looking at things that have been vetted by these great investors. So just a tip there for Ticker Terminal. Like I said, I'll link to the corner of Berkshire and Fairfax sign-up link for Ticker Terminal. But that's it, guys. I just wanted to give you an overview of kind of what I do every quarter when all of these super investors are releasing their latest stock purchases and stock sales. I'm thinking a lot of super investors are going to have their 13Fs in by this Friday. So the 13th in the afternoon sometime. I'm in California, so probably around 2 o'clock. I think there will be a lot of them in by then. So I'm excited to see what comes of that. So yeah, that's all I got. Let me know if you have any questions about 13F filings, about how to figure out what the super investors are buying. But guys, there is no other occupation or endeavor like investing where you can see what the best of the best are doing, right? This is such an advantage that we have as small, value investors to be able to see what the best of the best are buying and selling. So, if you're a beginner, especially, and you use as a starting list only companies that super investors have bought recently, you're going to dramatically improve your batting average over just going out and trying to pick companies on your own from, the list of 5,000 or so, options on Robinhood or something like that. So I highly recommend start here. Start with what great investors are buying. And I will leave you guys with that. See you in the next video, and happy hunting for 13F season. All right, guys, take care.